when you're a creatively and morally bankrupt studio that's paid an obscene amount of money for 20th Century Fox and all the IPs under their banner, you're going to find a way to dig just a little deeper.
In case you're wondering, yes, we're going to be talking about Critical Drinker, because his negative Nancy having ass had some crazy amount of issues with Alien Romulus, which I would understand if the complaints made sense. I mean, I get the complaints about the crossing with Romulus and not Romulus, Prometheus and Covenant. I guess I can understand that, but I'm gonna get into that later. But he's like making up all these complaints, and it's just like, dude, you're complaining just to complain. And I get that you're supposed to be critical about this stuff, but it's not even just being critical when you're just being a negative Nancy. So yeah, let's get into this and see how this goes.
So far so good, but does it actually deliver? Well, watching Alien Prometheus feels like two very different movies awkwardly bolted together. The first one is a tight, well-paced sci-fi thriller with a simple premise, great production design, a small cast of characters, an intriguing mystery, and some excellent performances by talented actors. In short, it's a simple but effective foundation for what could have been a decent Alien movie. The problems begin when setup has to give way to execution, and the tension gets squandered by the predictable horror tropes of dumb characters making dumb decisions, protracted chase scenes, shameless key jangling, and repurposed dialogue.
Okay, so characters making stupid decisions, I mean, okay. But how else are you going to have a horror movie without some stupid people? And these are human beings. They're going to make stupid-ass mistakes within high-tense situations. They're not going to be methodical all the time. I don't get that complaint. And long chase scenes? Where? You call this out, but you don't give an example? That's cool. And yes, I'll admit that this movie has references. Maybe a bit too much references, but I wouldn't say it's an unhealthy amount, where it's like this whole movie is just all about references or something like that. I mean, it does it in a sense that almost I didn't see all the references. I didn't see all the references. I wasn't always like, oh, they made a reference to this Alien movie. Oh my god. It wasn't like Terminators where they're always saying hasta la vista, baby. Like, stop.
And by the end, all sense of logic and consequences goes completely out the window, and the film devolves into mindless action and goofy attempts at body horror.
Mindless action scenes. I'm sorry, but there wasn't that much action scenes to begin with. I mean, there was a few where, I guess, with Rain going ahead and shooting in zero gravity, but that was like towards the end, and I mean, it kind of just balanced things out with horror and a little bit of action. I don't get that complaint. And they had some pretty good body horror scenes, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, they had some weird stuff. The giving birth scene, that was fucking weird, man. I mean, they did some good stuff pretty well with the horror gore aspect of it. I mean, I was freaked out by the acid thing, the acid kill. That got me. But, I mean, it's cool to say those things, but not giving an example, like I'm giving examples, is, well, it's a tad bit annoying, isn't it?
Now, I suspect I'm going to take a lot of flack for saying this, because for some reason everyone fucking loves this movie, but what the hell?
No, people have their reasons, and I'm giving my reasons. And sure, you're giving reasons without points, without examples. I mean, you're just whining and bitching. I mean, it sounds like a little baby needing his little bottle. Like, come on, man.
About 20 years after the events of the original Alien, and it kicks off with a Weyland-Yutani ship recovering the original xenomorph from the wreckage of the Nostromo. Now, I'm pretty sure that the Nostromo was vaporized by not one, but 3 thermonuclear explosions. And the xenomorph was blasted out into space from Ripley's escape pod, so the chances of actually finding it 2 decades later are about equal to finding an attractive woman at a Warhammer convention.
Okay, this once again makes no sense because he has no evidence of, well, what nukes can do. I mean, there can be still buildings left after a nuclear explosion. It isn't all just gone, and we don't even know what 3 could do. I mean, you don't know. I mean, there could still be some leftover stuff. It didn't show that much. It wasn't like the whole ship was still there. I mean, once again, with the alien, they found him because, well, it was close by. There isn't much thought that needs to be put to it. Sure, in space, nothing stops moving, but at the same time, things can stop things from moving. Like, say, debris left over from the the ship, could have stopped the alien in its tracks and left it motionless. Like, I don't get how this guy can. Okay, you know what? Yeah, makes no sense, obviously.
But man, it sure is cool to see stuff from the original movie, am I right? Keep that little writing philosophy in mind because it'll be important later.
Oh, God forbid the movie makes references to its past movies, and God forbid it's a love letter to the past Alien movies. Oh, no.
With news that a derelict space station has been detected orbiting the planet, Tyler and his crew plan to head up there in a cargo hauler, steal some cryopods, and use them to travel to a much nicer planet a few light years away. The catch is that they need Andy's help because he's the only one who can interface with the station's computer. Before you can ask questions like, why is nobody else investigating this space station? Or, wouldn't Wayland Yutani have sent out their own recovery team for it?
The thing is, the whole idea is that nobody knows that it was in trouble. All that we know was that it was shut down just a little bit ago. Like, they had just seen it on the scanner or whatever and went like, oh, it's inoperable at the moment. There wasn't any warnings to the government, and even so, if there was, which I didn't hear, and Rook, the AI that was in the movie towards the end, had even said it was going to take the company a few months to get to the planet to recover the stuff. So, there is also that. So I just don't get why, you have an issue with understanding that. I'm sorry, you do. Ugh, in English.
Unfortunately, this is where the script starts to go off the rails. One of the crew gets infected by a facehugger and tries to escape on the cargo hauler, but oh no, the chestburster kills her just as they're lifting off. I'm pretty sure that the whole process from facehugger to chestburster is supposed to take a couple of days, but now it's basically instantaneous for the sake of plot convenience.
So, if you had watched the movie, which I'm guessing you had, but I'm guessing you were too drunk to remember, so let me just get you up on speed on that. They had removed the facehugger and basically messed with the process. We don't know if that could have sped things up or not. Things were being messed with without the process being able to go through 100%. So, I mean, these things could happen.
And oh no, the cargo hauler crashes into the station and causes a big explosion that pushes it off orbit and then comes to rest completely intact in a hangar on the other side of the station. Wow, that was a lucky chain of events. Lucky it didn't just tumble off into space or get completely destroyed like the dropship from Aliens.
It's almost like it coincidentally happened. Oh well. Coincidence happens. It happens in movies and it happens in real life as well. Whoa. Shocking, I know. Not everything just has to happen your way.
Remember that? Remember how it triggered an overload in the atmosphere processor so the characters had to find a way to escape? The writers of this script certainly do.
What? That's like referenced once in Romulus. That's just for Rook to be like, okay, it still has a chance because the atmosphere thing was still fine. It was at 100% if I'm not mistaken. Unless that was a different device. I don't think so though. The whole idea was that the ship was crashing into the ring surrounding the planet.
And while I'm on that subject, that's not the only idea that they borrowed from other movies. Remember the pulse rifles? Remember Ash? Remember the alien hive? Remember the laser mist? Remember the black goo?
Because these are all things that are connected within the universe, that is a pattern that happens within the fucking universe. It's not just references, that's just canon. They even changed up the pulse rifles. They're not just regular pulse rifles, they're aim assistant because this is a high-tech lab research within the company. So yeah, they're going to have better gear than, say, the Marines. And yes, they made reference to Ash because, well, he's an AI. They have multiple AIs that are the same. They did that in Alien Covenant as well. So, I mean, that's just silly. Same goes for the black goo. I mean, they could have ignored the black goo, but instead they catered to the fans of Prometheus and Alien Covenant, because as much as you may dislike it, there are fans of those movies. And I am one of those fans. I know that there's flaws within those movies, but I'm still a fan of those movies. So, yeah, I was pretty happy about that. I'm sorry you weren't. I feel like it was handled better in this movie than in any of the other movies in Prometheus and Covenant, but okay.
Remember the alien Skeletor baby? Remember the fourth act stinger? Remember this line?
I prefer the term artificial person myself.
Or this line?
But you have my sympathies.
Or this line?
Get away from her. You bitch.
Yeah, they made a fix up with Alien Resurrection. That movie was trash. We all agree with that. Sure, it could have been still fun, but yes, it was trash, and they were just fixing something up. I don't see how a movie can correct the wrongs of their past doings. And it was doing something different with the baby. It wasn't just, oh, it was a reference. They did it differently. And their AIs, they can repeat themselves because they're going to keep on saying the things that they're programmed to almost say. Wow. Like, come on. And yeah, I understand that there's some reference lines that are a bit much with the stay away from her, you bitch line. Like, I get that. But what? Those were like few references within the movie, and they could be easily ignored?
I've heard enough of this, and I'm asking you to pull the plug.
Honestly, I could probably spend about 2 hours listing all the stuff this film shamelessly steals from other movies in the franchise, but for the sake of brevity, I'll move on.
Wah, wah, wah. It's almost saying, hey, we appreciate these movies as well. We love these movies as well. You're not an idiot for loving these movies. The whole idea of this movie was to be a love letter to all this stuff beforehand because they're doing a soft-ish reboot. They're continuing the series, but they're doing it a little bit differently. So this is kind of like an homage. If you would understand the premise of the movie and what the movie was being made for to convey, then you would understand that. But no, you don't care.
I like the early hints that humans are struggling with deep space colonization, hence the attempts to mix them with alien DNA to make them stronger. Yeah, the payoff doesn't make much sense when you realize the solution is to turn all of humanity into horrifyingly deformed monsters.
That wasn't the goal. That wasn't the goal in mind with that at all. The whole idea was to, of course, perfect humanity, but they didn't watch the tape fully to see that the rat had actually gone bad. I mean, they walked away before they had actually fully seen the scene, and the lab researchers, the lab scientists, were dead before they could even, tell the rest of the company that this is kind of going to shit. Because they were still doing their stuff before they died. I just don't get
Or the fact that they already have perfect workers in the form of androids who never get tired or sick or have to be paid, but whatever.
They do have worker androids. The whole idea is that they work for the company. They're greedy. They're not just gonna... They see it more costly to have to repair androids all the time than having human workers, human almost slaves. So, I don't get what you're trying to say. Because with human workers, they can procreate and make more workers. It's evil, and that's the whole idea. And to have androids, you'd have to manufacture them. You'd have to keep on making them. That costs more. So, you whining and bitching about that, makes no sense.
There's some decent gore and body horror, and the production probably saved a ton of money by not hiring any big-name actors.
Wait, weren't you the one at the beginning that was complaining about the cheap gore and everything? Or is that just me? No? Okay, whatever.
On that subject, the cast all do a reasonable job. I say reasonable rather than great because they're nowhere near as memorable as the crew of the Nostromo, for example, partly because the decision to cast a bunch of 20-somethings robs them of some much-needed gravitas.
What does them being 20 have to do with anything like that? What? And yeah, with the Nostromo, you were able to, meet the crew because they were, they were basically introducing themselves to the camera in a sense. Not literally, but, they were showing their personalities off. And they show their personalities, though not all that complex in this movie, I will agree. There is still personality within this movie. So, it doesn't have anything to do with this. I don't get why you... wah.
And partly because the script doesn't tell us a whole lot about them, despite the amount of time we actually spend with them. In Alien, I felt like I knew the crew pretty well within the first 15 minutes, but by the end of Romulus, I struggled to name a single character or what their personality was like because they all have the same background, played by actors of roughly the same age.
Yeah, they have the same background because it shows that everyone's struggling on that fucking planet. And age, again, what's your issue with 20-year-olds? What the hell, man? Just because they're not older and more experienced doesn't mean that they can't do a good job. Obviously, Andy, that you're going to bring up, it did a really good job. So, them being young actors have nothing to do with that. Stop it. You're making no sense.
Kaylee Speeney is fine as Rain, I guess. She doesn't have Sigourney Weaver's intensity and charisma or Noomi Rapace's physicality, but she gets the job done without too much fuss. Rain's likeable enough, and her relationship with Andy is a nice twist on the usual dynamics we see in films like this.
Oh my gosh, it's almost like you're comparing people to different people. They're not all going to be the same. Seriously? Yeah, okay, you can consider Rain as a mediocre main character. That's fine. But to be sad that they're not a copy and paste of what you liked in the other characters, that's going against what you're arguing about this movie. That they're copying things from the other movie. Am I right? Get out of here.
Even if it doesn't come close to the emotional impact of Ripley and Newt. The actors are fine, the director's good, and the production is excellent. The only real problem is the script, especially the third act, which throws so much ridiculous shit at you that it honestly feels like it was lifted from a completely different movie.
Because it was making reference to a completely different movie. It was making reference and showing love to Prometheus and Alien Covenant. And it wasn't just spontaneously, they made it flow within the movie by showing that the researchers were researching on the black goo that was from those fucking movies.
Before you know it, characters will be flying up and down elevator shafts fighting aliens while the gravity goes haywire, or shooting a swarm of them with a pulse rifle and acting surprised when acid blood goes flying everywhere, or injecting themselves with the black goo for no reason so that they can give birth to an alien baby that instantly transforms into a 10-foot tall human xenomorph engineer hybrid for yet another climactic showdown.
Yes, because climaxes are kind of like that. Shocking and twists. Oh my god, they have a twist. It's almost like they have a twist in the other Alien movies too. You want to criticize that too? You want to criticize how Ripley had to fight off the xenomorph again in the escape pod? No? Okay, shut up. They turned off the gravity because they were wanting to keep the acid floating. That was the purpose of it. If you were paying attention, you would have known. That was the whole purpose of that scene. It's not just to do. It was to do it to survive. I can't make sense out of you because you're so fucking stupid about this. Alcohol's getting to your brain, man. And the lady didn't just inject herself just because. She injected herself because she was told that it was supposed to help. She was told it was supposed to save lives or make them better. And she was doing it to save her child. The camera was pointing at her, rubbing her stomach as she was looking at those black vials. So don't just say it was for no reason.
The script just never lets up. It doesn't know when to quit, and instead of being exhilarating, it just becomes kind of tedious and exhausting by the end. All that carefully crafted tension and world building just goes out of the window in a confusing maelstrom of what I can best describe as J.J. Abrams' brand of rapid-fire stupidity. Just keep hitting the audience with more idiotic stuff that makes zero sense but looks really good, so they never have time to stop and think about it before the next dumb thing comes along.
It's not just idiotic stuff. It's Lovecraftian sci-fi horror. That's the whole idea of Aliens. It's not just idioticness. This is how the hybrid mishmashing thing works. I still don't understand his points. I mean, if you guys do, then tell me in the comments. Leave a dislike if you don't like it. Leave a like if you like the video and subscribe. Let me know down in the comments on how you feel about this, because I'm just confused on what this guy was even saying. I mean, I used to like him as a kid, but this video about this movie was just, it made no sense to me. His complaints were very inconsistent, and yeah, I mean, it was a silly little video. I mean, I just felt kind of annoyed because, I mean, this guy goes ahead and says, oh, go ahead and sit down and watch Alien 1 and 2 to see how you feel about this movie again. And it's like, I sat down, I enjoyed those two movies, and I still enjoyed Romulus. And I just don't get why this narrow-minded motherfucker has to go ahead and, bash on something that wasn't that bad. Was it great? No, but it was still good. I just don't get it. People, have to have their shitty opinions, and, well, I'm having my shitty opinion out right now. So, thank you guys for watching. Have a wonderful day. Have a greater day than me. And, yeah, bye-bye.